I never thought that a tiny microscope bought from a thrift store would be the only thing that made me feel like I had value in my family. Just like I'll never forget that afternoon when my mom screamed in my face just because I accidentally ruined my sister's hair bow while wiping the dinner table. "You were a mistake from the start," my mother said, her voice cold as steel. I was only 10. And my sister, Lily, was called my little angel by Mom, even though she had just scribbled ink all over the living room wall. If you think I'm exaggerating, just wait. Because I'm about to tell you about a childhood where unfairness wasn't just a habit, it was an unspoken rule in my house. I'm Emma Hayes, born and raised in a small town in Colorado. My family wasn't rich, but we weren't poor either. My parents were both office clerks. Stable, boring, and especially good at pretending. They always smiled sweetly at the neighbors, always acted like the perfect family. But once the door closed, it was a different world. One where I was nothing more than a shadow behind the spotlight they shone entirely on Lily. Lily was 2 years younger than me, with golden hair like a doll in a commercial and a smile that could make adults pull out their wallets without a second thought. Every year on Lily's birthday, our house turned into a carnival. Balloons, a 3-tier cake, a clown, and even a rented ice cream truck. Each gift was beautifully wrapped and placed neatly under a decoration tree Mom spent all day putting up. And my birthday? A small cake Mom rushed to buy at the grocery store, 3 crooked candles, and half-hearted wishes from eyes that didn't even bother to look at me. I was good at school, really good. From first grade I was top of the class, won school science competitions, and got mentioned by teachers at every parent meeting. But instead of being proud, my dad would just shrug. "She just buries her head in weird stuff. Who loves chemistry more than people?" I didn't love science to be better than anyone. I loved it because it was the only place where I felt heard. Every chemical reaction, every formula in my little notebook, was a small part of the world I built for myself. A world where no one could call me weird. Lily was the opposite. She hated books, hated studying, but somehow had an uncanny ability to manipulate adults. Every time she didn't get what she wanted, she cried, threw tantrums, pretended to faint, and the result? I got scolded for not being nice to my little sister. Lily's homework? I did it. Lily's science project? I made it. One time I protested. "I can't do everything, I have my own assignments too." My mother glared at me, voice sharp as a knife. "Mister should help each other. You're smarter, so it's your responsibility to share. Or are you just jealous because she's more loved?" That was the first time I wanted to scream. But I didn't. I bit my lip, nodded, and did Lily's work. Again. The older I got, the more I realized that to my parents I was the problem. I wasn't cute, didn't act sweet, didn't sit still so they could show me off like Lily. I asked questions, I challenged things, and worst of all, I didn't need them to find my passion. I once overheard my mom talking to a neighbor who complimented me. "Emma is smart, sure, but she's different. She's not like the rest of us." Different. That word stabbed me in the heart every time I remembered it. The only person who never made me feel different was my grandpa, Grandpa Frank. He was the only one in the family who actually listened, whose eyes lit up when I talked about new experiments at school. "That mind is gonna change the world," he'd say, ruffling my hair with a bright smile. I believed him. Only him. One time, when I was 12, he brought me an old microscope he found at a flea market. I screamed with joy, hugged him like I was hugging the whole world. "You're gonna see things your mother never will," he whispered. And he was right. I saw the sadness of being left behind, the coldness in my father's eyes, the calculated silence of my mother, and the sweet lie called family. You want me to stop here? Or do you want to know what finally made me no longer the invisible child? I promise you, everything that came after was even worse. I still remember that spring afternoon when I was 13. The sky was a strange gray, as if the universe itself was holding its breath with every beat of my heart. Class ended late that day. As I packed up my experiment, the faint scent of acid still lingering in my nose, my science teacher, Miss Bailey, called me over. Emma, do you have a minute? I nodded, heart skipping a beat. The school is nominating a few students for the state's gifted STEM program. I want to recommend you. I blinked. Me? Really? I've never seen anyone with your scientific intuition. You're not just smart. You're curious, persistent, and brave enough to ask the right questions. That's what science needs. I walked out of class that day feeling like I was flying. I didn't know much about the program, just that it was a rare opportunity that brought students closer to top research academies, maybe even early college scholarships. But more importantly, for the first time in my life, I felt seen. That night, I gathered my courage to bring it up at dinner. Lily was rambling on about the new dress Mom bought her. I waited until she stopped yapping. I was nominated by Miss Bailey for the gifted science program, I said, my voice trembling. They only pick a few students, and I got a spot to take the exam. My dad put his fork down and sighed, as if I had just said something troublesome. More nonsense, he muttered. My mom raised an eyebrow, looking at me with suspicion. Your sister just got selected to be a model for the school magazine. Why can't you think about doing something more presentable, instead of dragging test tubes home every day? I swallowed hard. I just need a signature for the exam form. No, my mom said firmly, this family doesn't have time for chasing silly dreams. You'll help Lily with her work this week. She has a literature essay due. I left the dinner table, my heart aching like it was being crushed. I didn't cry. I just felt like the world had slammed shut on me. Again. The next morning, while I was gathering my things for school, my grandmother, Grandma Margaret, called to me from the kitchen. Emma, come down here, she said. I tiptoed downstairs, afraid my parents might hear. She stood there with the application form in her hand, my handwriting still wet. You think I didn't know about this? She held up the form, her eyes glistening but her voice firm. You are going to let this go just because your parents don't understand? No, Emma, I won't let that happen. I had never seen her so resolute. That day, she went to school with me, submitted the form, and scheduled the test. Under the surprised eyes of Ms. Bailey and the principal, she said just one thing. I don't care what her parents think, I'll take full responsibility. The exam wasn't easy. But each question felt like a window opening into the world I'd dreamed of. Formulas, reactions, real-world problems needing logical thinking. I finished the test with a soft smile. For the first time in months. 3 weeks later I received an acceptance letter. I had passed, and not just that, I ranked first in the region. The letter also included an invitation to a summer science workshop with professors from Stanford University. I still remember opening that letter in Grandma's backyard. The late afternoon sun shone on the white paper, sparkling like magic. She took my hand, smiling brightly. If your grandpa were alive, he'd be jumping for joy, she said. You're the pride of this family, Emma, and don't ever let anyone make you forget that. That summer, I stepped into a whole new world. I met kids just like me. Ones who were called weird at their old schools but shined in the lab. We talked for hours about nanomaterials, stem cells, and clean energy solutions. And I didn't feel out of place anymore. By the end of 9th grade, I was awarded a full scholarship to a prestigious STEM-focused high school in another state. My mother was furious, calling me ungrateful. We raised you, and now you won't even stay to care for your family? What kind of person does that make you? It was Grandma who signed the papers for me to go. She helped me pack, took me to the airport, and hugged me tightly at the security gate. Don't look back, she whispered in my ear. Just keep looking forward. I didn't know then that every success that followed, every award, every discovery, every step closer to a college scholarship, started from that moment. From the form she signed, and the unconditional belief she had in me. If you ask me whether just one person's love can change your life, I'll say yes, and I'll say that person is my grandmother. I learned about Grandpa's illness through a vague part of a FaceTime call with my mom while I was on shift in the university lab at Boston. With the way things are going, he might not have much time left, I heard my mom say, her voice lowering like she was whispering to someone. I looked up immediately, heart pounding. Are you talking about Grandpa Frank? What's wrong with him? Silence. Then her tone changed, soft, sweet like honey. Oh, you heard that? It's nothing serious, just a little cold. Don't worry, Emma, he's fine, already getting better. I wanted to believe her, but something in her voice made me uneasy. It felt forced, not like how she usually spoke to me. I want to come visit Grandpa, I said, not hiding my worry. No need, my mom replied quickly. Lily's taking care of them. You just focus on school. This is an important time for you. But I'm his family too. Well, so is Lily. You think your grandparents would be happy if you abandoned your internship for this? I ended the call feeling unsettled. Something wasn't right. It was mid-September. I remember clearly because it was pouring rain, and I spent the entire night by the window, heart heavy. 2 weeks later, I decided to go home, without telling anyone. I headed straight to my grandparents' house, heart full of worry, but holding on to a bit of hope. Hope that it was all just a misunderstanding. That maybe I was just overthinking. I didn't expect Lily to be the one who opened the door. Emma? She raised an eyebrow like she'd seen a ghost. I came to visit Grandma and Grandpa. How's he doing? No one's home, she said quickly, almost automatically. So where are they? I don't know, I'm busy, you should go. I tried to push my way in, but Lily immediately blocked me, shoving the door hard. I said no one's home. Lily, move, I'm their granddaughter. And I live here now, so please leave. The door slammed in my face, cold and chilling. I stood frozen. My hands trembled as I called Grandma. No signal. Phone off. Tried again. Nothing. She always left her phone on, especially for me. For the first time in years, I felt like I'd been shut out of my own life. I turned and headed to my parents' house, questions swirling in my head. They were surprised to see me, but quickly put on their usual blank faces. Where are Grandma and Grandpa? I asked as soon as I stepped into the kitchen. My dad didn't look up from his newspaper. They're in a nursing home now. Quick decision. They needed special care. Why didn't anyone tell me? You're busy. You're in Boston. Why drag you back for this? At the very least, I should have been able to call. Did they agree to it? My mom pressed her lips together. We did what was best for them. And don't make a mess out of this. They didn't want to see you. They said, you've changed. You're distant. I couldn't speak. They said my grandparents didn't want to see me? After everything they'd done for me? I walked away without saying another word. Part of me wanted to believe they were just trying to protect me from something worse. But the truth? Didn't wait for me to be ready. 4 days later, I got a call from my mom. Frank passed away. Just 4 words, but each one cut deep like a knife to the heart. I choked out. When's the funeral? Saturday. 1 o'clock. Don't be late. I arrived at the church at 12:45, my heart tightening with every step. But the parking lot was empty. The church was silent, like a graveyard. I ran inside and found a custodian cleaning up. Excuse me, Mr. Frank Hayes's funeral. It's over, miss. They held it this morning, 9 o'clock. My head spun. I stood frozen in the aisle, tears streaming uncontrollably. Mom said 1 o'clock. She said 1 o'clock. I wrote it down. Even set an alarm last night. I called her right then. Oh, Emma, why did you come so late? She said, her voice disturbingly sweet. I'm not late, I came at the time you told me. We all agreed on 9 o'clock, she replied, without a hint of hesitation. No, you said 1 o'clock, I wrote it down, I remember clearly. You're just emotional, maybe you remembered wrong. Her voice was gentle like a breeze, but every word hit me like a slap. I understood now. They didn't want me there. They had crafted the whole plan, moving my grandparents somewhere else, cutting off contact, lying about the nursing home, and in the end, shutting me out of saying goodbye to the person I loved most. I collapsed into an empty pew, screaming silently. My grandfather, the only one who ever believed in me, was gone. Thinking I didn't bother to show up, that I had forgotten him. I wasn't there, and they made that happen. Some losses are unforgivable. Some wounds don't need blood to bleed, but they never truly heal. And some families don't deserve to be called family. 3 days after the funeral, I drove to my grandparents' house like a stranger returning to what was once home. My mind raced with anger and grief. I needed one thing: the truth. When Grandma opened the door, her face froze like stone. That gaze was no longer a place I could find comfort. "You dare show up here?" she said, her voice cold as ice. I swallowed hard. "I need to talk. About Grandpa, and why I wasn't at the funeral." She started to close the door, but I blurted out, "I didn't abandon him. They lied. Mom told me the funeral was at 1 o'clock. I came on time, but it was already over by 9. Her hand paused. "Since you went to college he kept calling you, but you never answered. He died feeling forgotten." "I didn't receive a single call," I said, shaking as I reached into my pocket. I pulled out a slip of paper. "This is the number he was calling." "It's fake. Mom and Lily gave him a fake number. I've had the same number since I was 16. She stared at Grandpa's handwriting on the note, then slowly stepped back. "Oh my God," she whispered, like she couldn't believe it. "I tried to see him. Lily blocked me at the door. I called you, your phone was off." Why did they do this? Her face went pale. I saw her hands tremble. A long silence settled like fog. "Come in," she said quietly. "We have things to settle." She made a call right then. Her voice was no longer soft, it was sharp and commanding. "Tom, Lily, both of you come to my house immediately, and bring the lawyer. David left a few things that need to be addressed. No, not tomorrow. Now." An hour later, the whole family was in the living room. The air was suffocating. Mom sat with her arms crossed, face cold as stone. Dad kept sighing. And Lily, she chewed gum and fiddled with her phone like nothing mattered. The lawyer Raymond was a man with graying hair and a thick leather briefcase. When he opened it, the room fell completely silent. The will was signed and legally notarized by Mr. David Hayes 3 months before his passing. Mr. Raymond said, laying out the documents on the table. "I will now read it, word for word." I clenched my hands as he began. "First, I, David Hayes, leave the entire current house, along with all personal savings, to my wife, Margaret Hayes. All living expenses for her remaining years will be covered." Grandma nodded slightly, her face unreadable. "Second, I leave full ownership and usage rights of the scientific research facility at 54A Riverbend Street, to my granddaughter, Emma Hayes. The laboratory has been fully constructed, operational permits granted, and equipment installed." A loud "What?" burst from Lily, followed by the screech of a chair being shoved back. A lab?" she stammered. I was speechless. Grandpa built a lab for me? A real research facility? "It's not over," Mr. Raymond said, his voice steady as stone. "The remainder of the estate, including company shares, investment accounts, and the second property, will be equally divided between my 2 granddaughters, Emma and Lily Hayes." The air turned thick. My mother whipped her head toward Mr. Raymond. "Are you sure? David? He couldn't have." "You're welcome to review the signature, the recorded video of the will reading, and the sworn statements of the 2 witnesses," Mr. Raymond replied coldly. I hadn't even processed it when my grandmother stood up, holding a neatly folded letter in her hand. "There's one more thing," she said, her gaze sweeping across everyone. "David left this for Emma." She looked directly at me as she opened the letter. Her voice trembled, but every word was clear. "To Emma, my little scientist. If you're reading this, it means I'm no longer here. I'm sorry I couldn't wait to hug you one last time. But I know. It's not your fault. I called. I left messages. I waited. And I understand that sometimes walls are built by those you never expected. That lab. I built it for you, so you'd have a place to belong. No one can stop you anymore. You're going to change the world, Emma. Start right here. I broke down. Not because of the lab. Not because of the inheritance. But because Grandpa had known everything. And still believed in me. Until the very end. If someone asked me what moment changed my life forever, I wouldn't say the day I got into college or won a national award. I'd say it was that day, the day truth shattered all lies, and the voice of someone long gone was still strong enough to pull me up from betrayal. But the worst part wasn't over yet. Lily shot up from her chair like she'd been stabbed, her gun fell from her mouth, and her eyes flared like I had just stolen her crown. "What?" she screeched. "She got what? A whole lab?" Before I could respond, she turned to our parents, her face contorted with rage. "What did you promise me? What did you say?" "That if I took care of Grandma and Grandpa, played the sweet granddaughter, I'd get everything. Everything. So what is this split it evenly nonsense?" My father looked flustered, coughing to cover his discomfort. My mother fumbled like she'd just been caught red-handed. "Calm down, Lily. Calm down. Calm down." She screamed like she'd lost her mind. "She gets that crazy lab and I only get half? No way. Emma doesn't deserve this. She did nothing but bury herself in chemicals and act all smart." I stood up. My voice was calm and my eyes didn't flinch. "If I'm so useless, Lily, why did you have to spend a whole year pretending to be the perfect granddaughter just to get Grandpa's money?" She stepped back then scoffed. "That trashy lab isn't even worth anything. What are you going to do, sit in there and die alone running tests? The house is the real prize." Then she turned to Grandma and shouted, "I want the house. I'm the one who deserves to live here." Grandma looked at her directly. Not angry, not compassionate. "You don't deserve anything in David's will. But because he loved both of you, he still left you a share. And now you're disgracing that last bit of kindness with this behavior." "No!" Lily screamed, tears streaming. But they were bitter, poisonous tears with not a hint of remorse. "I did everything right. Mom and Dad told me to be sweet, visit Grandpa every week, fake like I cared. So why is it Emma?" The room fell silent. Even my parents didn't say a word. I turned to them, my voice eerily calm. "And you think this is fair?" My father exhaled sharply, shaking his head in disappointment. "Emma, you're being dramatic. We're family, family shares. You've already been given more than enough." "More?" I let out a cold laugh. "I don't recall you ever contributing a single dollar to my tuition. Not a single science camp, not one competition trip was paid for by you. It was all Grandpa and Grandma." "You're trying to blame your parents now?" my mother snapped, slamming her hand on the table. "We raised you. Doesn't that count for anything?" I looked at Grandma. She gave a slight nod, as if to say I had the right to speak. "Yes, you raised me. But how? By calling me a freak? By making me do Lily's homework and calling it my responsibility? By telling the neighbors I wasn't like anyone in the family, as if I was some stain?" "Emma!" my mom barked. "I'm not lying," I continued. "You always treated me like the extra. Even when Grandpa died, you deliberately gave me the wrong time for the funeral, so I'd be humiliated. I'm hated just because I'm not Lily. And now that Grandpa left me something he quietly built for me, you want me to hand it over to the person who spent a year acting just to get his money?" "You're being selfish, Emma," my father said, his voice tired. "If you had any respect for this family, you'd know how to sacrifice for your sister." I turned to him. "You're right. But it's not that I'm not respectful. I just refuse to be used anymore." No one said another word. There was nothing left to say. Lily slammed her hand on the table. "So what now? I get nothing? No one's on my side?" Grandma stood up, her gaze colder than the first snow of the season. Lily, if you truly loved your grandparents, then even without getting anything, you would still have been the one Grandpa loved most. But you traded that love for personal gain. You didn't lose because Emma took something, you lost because you weren't worthy. Lily burst into tears, but no one believed those tears anymore. My mother stood up trying to grab Grandma's arm. Mom, this isn't worth blowing up. Not worth it? Grandma's voice was sharp. My husband's death was turned into a tool for manipulation. My granddaughter was slandered, pushed out of this family simply for being different. And now, with the truth laid bare, you still want to erase the last thing he left for her? Silence fell over the room. Grandma looked straight at them, then said firmly, I want all of you out of my house, immediately. I sat frozen in the corner, my breath heavy. I didn't feel joy or satisfaction, but I felt light. As if, for the first time, I didn't have to bow my head and beg to be acknowledged. Outside the window, the wind picked up, sweeping away years of dust on the old doorstep. The masks had fallen. What remained was the truth. And freedom. The room was thick with silence after Grandma asked the three of them to leave. But then she turned, not toward the door, but pulled from her pocket a deep yellow envelope, the kind Grandpa always used for his handwritten letters. There's one last thing, she said, her voice not loud, but ringing out like a church bell at noon. David left me a letter, told me to read it only when the truth came out. And I believe that moment is now. I stood up, heart pounding in my chest. Lily stood still as stone, while my mother tried to mask the worry spreading across her face. My father leaned forward slightly, as if to snatch the letter before she could read it. But the look in Grandma's eyes stopped him cold. She opened the letter, her hands only slightly trembling, but her gaze unwavering. To Margaret, my partner in life. If you're reading this, then I am likely gone. And if those I love are listening, I hope they'll listen with their hearts, not with anger. Her voice dropped as she continued, each word tearing through the last mask left in the room. I've lived long enough to know that family doesn't always love the way we hope. And I'm clear-minded enough to realize, love with conditions isn't real love. Emma, the little girl always clutching her microscope, her eyes lighting up with every discovery, is the only grandchild who never disappointed me. Not because she's brilliant, but because she's honest. Honest with herself, with her passion, and with her pain. Grandma paused. Lily bit her lip, eyes red. Not from emotion, but from rage fermenting inside her. Tom, Julia, Grandma continued reading, looking directly at my parents. I can't forgive you, not because you didn't love Emma, but because you deliberately chose not to. You picked one child and discarded the other. You treated affection like currency. Emma only mattered when she was useful, when she pleased others. My mother clenched her fists, veins bulging under her skin. My father turned his face away. I know you lied about Emma changing her phone number. I know you tricked me into thinking she didn't want to see me. And what hurt the most was lying in that hospital bed, calling over and over and no one answered, while Emma thought I had turned my back on her. Grandma's voice began to shake. David wrote further, I don't need anyone to apologize for those lies, but I want the truth to come to light. And I want you, Margaret, for the rest of your life, to do what's right. Not for pride, not for blood, but because Emma deserves it. Protect her, as you once did. She folded the letter, eyes now red with tears. Then she looked up and met each gaze, her children, and the granddaughter they had turned into a puppet. That was David's final wish, the man you manipulated until his very last breath. No one said a word. No one could. Then she turned to the lawyer. Raymond, I want you to draft an addendum to the will, if it's allowed. I don't want any of them to ever have the right to enter this house again. And if they try to contest anything, I will present this letter in court. Lily screamed, No way, you don't have the right. I have every right, Grandma cut in, her voice sharp as a blade. Because I'm the only one who kept my promise to your grandfather. My father started to rise, but Grandma pointed to the door. I've lost my husband. I don't need to lose my dignity too. Get out of my house now. And if you have any decency left, leave quietly. No one argued. There were only the pounding footsteps and the sound of the door slamming shut behind them. In that moment, I didn't feel relief. I felt justice. Grandma turned to me, her eyes now filled only with love and sorrow. Your grandfather waited for you, and now you must live for the part of his life he didn't get to finish. I hugged her, tears falling onto her wool sweater. The place that used to be the safest in my childhood. Truth can be cruel, but it's the only thing that can wash away the stains left by lies. And in that house, with the scent of old paper still lingering on the letter, I knew I no longer had to prove my worth to anyone. Because the one who mattered most had always believed in me. It's been 6 years since the will was read. 6 years since that afternoon when Grandpa's letter shattered every illusion I had about family. But from that rubble, I began rebuilding my life, brick by brick. With truth, knowledge, and immeasurable gratitude. The lab on Riverbend Street has become the place where I live, work, and breathe. More than just a facility Grandpa left behind, it's a symbol of the faith he placed in me. The one flame that never went out, even when the world turned its back. I've expanded the lab into an independent research center specializing in renewable energy. My team is small but resilient. Together we've secured 3 federal grants, published 7 research papers, and recently signed a partnership with an international nonprofit to bring green energy solutions to underprivileged rural communities. Every time I walk through the glass doors engraved with Frank Hayes Research Center, I think of his eyes the day I won my first science award. Eyes that have never left me. Grandma is still healthy. She visits the lab every Wednesday afternoon, bringing apple pie and a long list of science questions. I read about hydrogen batteries last week, she says, excited like a first grader. But I still don't quite get the electrolysis part. Can you explain it again? I laugh, but I always explain patiently. She writes everything down in a blue-covered notebook, the one she calls her 80-year-old scientist's handbook. I don't just want to watch, she says. I want to understand what you're doing, so that one day, when I see Grandpa again, I can tell him everything. Every time she says that, my heart aches. A mix of emotion and the quiet reassurance that I'm living a life Grandpa would be proud of. I no longer keep in touch with anyone from my old family. Not out of hatred, but for peace. Messages, calls, emails, all blocked. I don't read them, don't reply, don't care. Once, Lily messaged me from a strange number, a long drawn-out text complaining about being unemployed and forced by Mom and Dad to shoulder the family's debt. At the end she wrote, "Don't you remember we're family?" I didn't reply. I didn't delete it either. I kept it as a reminder. Some people only remember you when they need something, not when they care. My mom once called the center, left a short voicemail. Just wanted to hear your voice. I didn't listen, I deleted it immediately. Not because I'm heartless, but because I'm no longer the girl who waited for her mother's approval after every award. I already have everything I need. A home that is a laboratory. A grandmother who is my ally. A purpose not bound by anyone else. On my desk, there's a small framed photo. In it, a faded image of me at 7 years old, holding a magnifying glass, hair messy, mouth wide open as I stared at a ladybug crawling across Grandpa's palm. He leaned in beside me, pointing at it, eyes twinkling like stars. On the back of the photo, written in fountain pen, "My little scientist is going to change the world." I don't know if I'll ever change the whole world, but I do know this. I've changed my own. I no longer live to prove anything to anyone. Except myself, and him. One time, a student in my research group asked me, "Emma, why did you choose to work in this lab when you're good enough to be at MIT or any top institute?" I looked out the glass door. That afternoon, wildflowers were blooming by the steps. just like they did when I was little. Wrapping my arms around Grandpa's legs, running through the backyard. Because this is the only place in the world, I answered, where I never had to ask permission to be myself. Emma's story isn't just about escaping injustice and betrayal in her family. It's a testament to the power of belief, passion, and unconditional love. In life, sometimes the ones closest to us hurt us the most. But just one person truly believing in us, like Emma's grandfather, can be enough to help us rise and rewrite our fate. The greatest lesson is this: you don't need the world's approval. You just need the courage to live your truth, and to choose love that asks for nothing in return. What do you think about Emma's journey and the choices she made? Would you have done things differently? Share your thoughts below, and don't forget to follow the channel for more powerful and emotional stories about family.